Hello everyone, it's Alex here from MenuDocs, and in today's episode we're going to be digging back into our Introduction to Web Development series. Today is episode 10, and we're going to continue our cleanup. This is cleanup part 2. And surprisingly, we are actually going to, as I said in the last episode, I wasn't sure if this was going to be 2 or 3 episodes of cleanup, but surprisingly I managed to squeeze it down into just 2. That does mean, however, that we are going to do some of the JavaScript setup for future episodes in this. We are also going to be talking about Font Awesome in this episode as well. So, let's get started. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create some more folders over here. Because, oh lord, do we need some folders. So we need image. We're going to need CSS. An image. I should just be able to... let's see. There we go. There's there. It's here. I promise it's here. Anyway, we are going to remove the meta char set from staff.html. First things first. And that's because we're going to do some wonky stuff in here as well. In the CSS, we're going to create a new file. We're going to call it main.css. This is quite common with a lot of things. We're going to write up the CSS before we start doing classes and stuff in the HTML. So we're going to do our body element. We're going to make our background. It's going to be a URL, image, background.jpg, background size is going to be cover, background repeat, no repeat, of course, no repeat just means that we aren't going to have repeats, and I explained a lot of this in the CSS episodes. The next two I did not explain, and I'll explain them really fast. The next one is background attachment, which is fixed, and if you hover over this, it's actually quite nice. So it's going to save the fixed value, so if we hit more, it's not actually going to appear for you all. But pretty much what it means is it's just where you're looking at is where the thing is going to be. So like if I'm looking at the middle of the page, that's where this image is going to be. But if I had to scroll down, the background would follow it. It's kind of nice. So background position. This is another one. This just says where on the page it's positioned. We're just going to go with center. Color. This is just color for everything. We're just going to color white it. Font family. Now, this I took into a lot of serious consideration. And what I ended up going with was Avenir, which is a sans serif subset. But I think Avenir looks pretty neat. So next up, we're going to do our H1. Our H1 class is going to have a font size of 100 pixels, and I've covered everything of these in previous episodes, as I said in the last one. So, okay, Adam. 1 second, guys. Alright, sorry about that. Decided to give up on me. But your main thing here is I have covered all of the code for this. I have explained CSS classes in depth. I have an entire video on it. I have explanations for how each one of these things works. Like, I have explained how every single aspect that we're going to do here works. And the stuff I haven't explained, like height and width of a container, is just how big is it going to be. Like position absolute, that means it's going to be where I put it on the page. And that's just good life cycle things. And a lot of this stuff is just is just good practice. And that's the goal, is you want to always do good practices. I mean, you could get away without putting these in there, except on mobile it'll screw up all over the place. And there's all kinds of stuff you have to be careful with. And a lot of this stuff is just make sure it looks good and make sure it works everywhere. So a lot of this stuff is really basic things. Okay. And ignore the 3em. I know this is kind of confusing because I've been using pixels, but the reason I'm using 3em here is because I made it override, and I'm not going to explain that because that's bootstrap things. So, okay, so our position here is again absolute. And this is again just making things look good. And I recommend, especially if you do intend at some point to apply for, say, proficient or staff on MenuDocs, that you do make things, like, don't cut corners. Like, I really want to here. I really want to cut the corners that I normally would, because we wouldn't have any of this. I'd chop that out. I'd chop this margin out. I'd change the font size to 24 pixels, and I'd remove the override. We'd chop the margin auto over here. We'd cut out the background position because that's automatic. And you can do so many things to cut corners. But if you really want to look good and look knowledgeable and know what you're doing, especially if you're working for clients and things, because their use case may vary on what you do, you always want to make sure that you give them every tool they could possibly need. So, actually really quick, let's talk about our CSS file here, because I just sort of sped through that really quickly. So, this is just our class of container fluid. We'll be inputting that. Auto margins, just sizing, padding. This is all padding. Position is absolute. Width and height of the container itself. Again, pretty self-explanatory. Margin is 10 pixels by 5 pixels of a margin. So it's going to be 10 up and down, 5 left and right as a requirement. Font size, 3em. 3em is just the web version of pixel size, so 3em or 36 pixels if you want. And the reason I used em is because I've made it an override of everything else. And this just means override everything else. So it has to be, this is specifically used for images, 3em instead of pixels. I mean, you can pixelate image sizes, but then you have to get very precise. And this is 36.2 pixels, for those who are curious. And this is the override that just says, no matter what the image size is, this is what I want it to be. And then the footer position's absolute, 0 padding on the bottom, and a width of 100%. Really easy. So now let's go into the index, and boy oh boy. Okay. So I'm going to be using Bootstrap, as I said earlier. I also said in the last episode, I'm not explaining it because the point is to just make something basic, and explaining how Bootstrap and stuff works is going to be very complicated, and it's stuff that you don't actually need to know. I'm also going to be using Font Awesome, and this is just to make the website look clean and nice. Whoa. Do not like this? Do I need to... Wow. I'm gonna put bets on it being the Bootstrap link. Okay, hold on. Wow, and that just threw head. I bet the moment I get rid of this. Whoa. What on earth? Okay, hold up, we'll be right back. Okay guys, so after quickly rebooting Atom, this looks just fine now. Don't know what happened there. But this is all you really need. If you would like to use Bootstrap like me, the Bootstrap docs are really great, and they tell you exactly how to get this link and everything you need for it. Font Awesome also tells you how to get this, but if you're really curious, you can just copy this link. It's the exact same thing you'll need everywhere. Okay, so I have to copy 2 more links here, and that's just because they are ridiculously long. Boop. There we go. Okay, as stated, these are ridiculously long. These are just JavaScript plugins and jQuery for later on. We're gonna need both of these for the nav bar that we're gonna do here and in the next episode, I think. So these are just plugins for the JavaScript navbar. We're going to start in the next episode. And of course we're going to JavaScript the footer, the episode after that. And there's just a couple of things we're going to be doing here. And this is just cleanup sort of things. And this is just pretty much prepping for closure of the series, because we're getting towards the end. I taught you all the basics and stuff really early on, and now we just gotta put it all together, which is what we're doing here. And then once it's all put together, we're gonna wrap some things up and call it a day. So next up, we are going to class the ever-living crap out of this thing. So starting here, we're going to class this to be container fluid, which is one of the classes we defined in our main CSS, right there. And then this div, we're going to class again, and we're going to class this as header. And this is a Bootstrap class. This is one we defined. And then in our footer, we're going to class it as the footer, which is, again, Bootstrap. We're going to class the container, which is also Bootstrap. We are going to class the icons, which is Font Awesome. And actually, we are going to implement those right now. So for our email, oops, that's not what I meant to do. This is what we're going to put in there. So you're going to have an email icon to click to email. And then we also have a fancy schmancy GitHub one right there. It just makes things look nice. And if you pull this up, which I can do very quickly, as you notice, this is sitting off to the side right now. And all of this is pushed over to the side, and we will fix that up here in just a moment. But as you can see, we have some fancy schmancy logos. And just like that, just by refreshing the web page, we get the centered text again, because we defined in our main CSS that we have the text align to the center, which means that everything just slides to the center. Now, for the staff page, you can pretty much just Control A the entire page over if you don't feel like rewriting it, and I would not blame you, because this is a long thing to write, and I would not blame you for copying and pasting to just get it done, because the stuff in the staff team is exactly the same. The only change is this. And now we can actually go to pages, staff HTML. I do believe we ran into the CSS issue where you have to make sure you put another dot in your CSS, because we are going out of the pages folder and into the CSS folder. That is my bad. I forgot you have to do that. And bam, everything looks great now. And well, because we did all the preparation for JavaScript, the next episode is going to look really good. So guys, if you all enjoyed, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. And as you know, we have to end off the episode with our Oxide partner.
Today's video is proudly powered by our partner, Oxide Hosting. Get your products hosted by them with their cheap, reliable services. So what are you waiting for? Check them out in the description below.
And there you go, guys. I hope to see you all again in the next episode. We're going to get into JavaScript with the JavaScript navbar. And until then, happy coding, guys.